There comes a moment in every life when the weight feels a little too heavy, the noise a little too loud, and the path a little too unclear. You start questioning your strength, your direction, and sometimes even your worth. You wonder if you're really capable of carrying what's in front of you, and you look around thinking, maybe somebody else could handle this better than me. But I want you to hear this today, not with your ears, but with your spirit. You are not carrying this life because you volunteered for it. You're carrying it because God chose you for it. God didn't choose you by accident. He chose you with intention, purpose, and precision. When you begin to see your life through this lens, everything shifts. Suddenly, the hardships, the delays, the moments of confusion start to make sense in ways that worry and fear never could. You start to understand that every experience, every challenge, every season you've walked through has been carefully designed to prepare you for this very moment. Nothing in your journey has been random. Every setback was not a punishment, and every detour was not a mistake. God is intentional. He sees the end from the beginning, and He chooses with deliberate care. Sometimes when we feel overlooked, rejected, or forgotten, we forget that God's timing is perfect. We measure our lives in hours, days, weeks, and months, but God measures with eternity in mind. What looks like delay to us is often preparation to Him. He is equipping you, molding you, shaping your heart, your character, and your faith in ways you cannot see. You were chosen long before the world knew your name. You were chosen before you were aware of your own potential. Even when the world labels you as ordinary or incapable, God sees the extraordinary within you. He sees the gifts you haven't discovered, the resilience you haven't tapped into, and the impact you are yet to make. Choosing you doesn't mean the journey will be easy. It means the journey is intentional. It means that every twist and turn is placed to strengthen you, to refine you, to reveal the depths of your courage and the breadth of your faith. The people who doubt you, the obstacles that seem insurmountable, the fears that whisper in the middle of the night, they are not signs that you are unchosen. They are signs that God is building something bigger than you can imagine. You are not an accident, a coincidence, or an afterthought. You were handpicked, designed, and purposed for what lies ahead. God's precision is evident in the way doors open at the right time, in the way connections align, and in the way moments unfold perfectly, even when your mind cannot predict the outcome. The challenge is learning to trust the process, to trust the one who knows every detail, and to stop questioning why it hasn't happened according to your plan. Your life is not a series of random events. It is a carefully orchestrated story authored by the Creator who knows the beginning, the middle, and the end. He has already written chapters that you have not yet read, and He has already placed people, opportunities, and experiences along your path to ensure that you fulfill the purpose He designed uniquely for you. Every trial is a teacher, every blessing is a confirmation, and every season is a step toward the destiny that only you can fulfill. Understanding that you are chosen with intention, purpose, and precision frees you from the weight of comparison, from the anxiety of uncertainty, and from the pressure of trying to prove yourself to the world. It allows you to rest in the knowledge that you are exactly where you need to be at this very moment, and that God's hand is guiding every step with care that is perfect, wise, and loving. When you embrace this truth, the fear of failure begins to fade, the noise of doubt begins to quiet, and the confidence of divine selection begins to rise within you. Your calling is not dependent on how others see you, how you feel about yourself, or the immediate results of your efforts. It is dependent on God, who chose you deliberately and with a purpose that exceeds understanding, who placed within you the exact qualities necessary to walk through the doors He is preparing, and who continues to work unseen to align every circumstance to fulfill His perfect plan. You begin to see that nothing is wasted, no moment is meaningless, and every step is intentional. You understand that the life you are living is not an accident, and the person you are becoming is the exact person God knew you could be. Stress is a signal, not a sentence. God is stretching you, not breaking you. Too often we look at the pressures, the deadlines, the conflicts, and the unexpected twists in life and assume that these burdens are proof that we are failing, that we are not strong enough, or that we are somehow unfit for the calling placed upon us. We feel weighed down, exhausted, and overwhelmed, and the natural response is to panic, to fight against the current, or to question why life is so hard. But stress is not a punishment, it is a divine indicator. It is a sign that something within you is growing, that your faith is being tested, and that your spirit is being prepared for greater things. When you face challenges that seem bigger than your ability to handle, that is not the time to despair. It is the time to remember that God is stretching you, expanding your capacity, and shaping your endurance. Just as a muscle grows stronger under resistance, your character grows stronger under the weight of trials. Each stressor you encounter is an opportunity to learn patience, to develop resilience, and to trust in God's timing rather than your own. The tension in your life is evidence that God is working in ways that your eyes cannot yet see. He is preparing you for situations that require more than you currently possess, for relationships that demand more grace than you have yet practiced, and for opportunities that call for greater faith than you have yet exercised. Stress is not meant to break you. It is meant to stretch you, to expand your perspective, to reveal strengths you did not know existed, and to bring out qualities that only emerge under pressure. The key is perspective. When you view stress as a sentence, you are trapped in fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. When you view stress as a signal, you recognize it as a tool, a guide, a message that God is at work in your life. It tells you to pay attention, to adjust, to prepare, and to trust. You may not understand why you are going through what you are going through, but God does. He is the master orchestrator of your life, and every trial has a purpose. Every challenge is a classroom, every obstacle is a teacher, and every burden is a bridge to a higher place. Stress is temporary, God's purpose is eternal. When you allow yourself to see stress in this way, you no longer carry it as a curse, but embrace it as part of your spiritual and emotional growth. You begin to recognize that what you thought was too heavy to bear is actually a weight that is strengthening you, refining you, and molding you into the person God chose you to be. Stress becomes an invitation to lean more deeply into God's wisdom, to surrender your control, and to rely on His strength rather than your own. It reminds you that you are not alone, that the pressure you feel is matched by the provision of God's guidance, and that the challenges in your life are shaping a future that is aligned with His perfect plan. Understanding that stress is a signal, not a sentence, allows you to walk through life with confidence, to face difficulties with courage, and to trust that God is stretching you intentionally to prepare you for the blessings, the responsibilities, and the victories that are ahead. You begin to see that the very things that once threatened to overwhelm you are actually the instruments of your growth, the catalysts of your faith, and the tools God uses to equip you for the destiny He has chosen for you. You're not required to have every answer. You're required to trust the one who does. So often, we walk through life thinking that the weight of every decision, every problem, and every uncertainty rests entirely on our shoulders. We feel the pressure to figure it all out, to anticipate every obstacle, and to control every outcome. We imagine that if we just plan carefully enough, if we just work hard enough, if we just think long enough, we can solve every challenge and fix every problem. But this mindset is not only exhausting, it is unnecessary. God never intended for you to carry the burden of knowing everything. You were not designed to have every answer, to predict every turn in the road, or to control circumstances beyond your reach. What you are required to do is trust. Trust is the key that unlocks peace, strength, and clarity in the midst of uncertainty. Trust is the bridge between what you can do and what only God can do. When you understand that your responsibility is not to have every answer, your heart can relax and your spirit can find rest. Life will continue to bring questions that seem impossible, problems that feel unsolvable, and challenges that appear overwhelming. But trusting God allows you to navigate each situation without the panic and fear that come from trying to carry the weight alone. You begin to see that your limitations are not liabilities, they are invitations to rely more fully on God. Your gaps in knowledge, your lack of control, and your inability to predict outcomes are all opportunities for God to demonstrate His power, wisdom, and faithfulness. When you step into a situation with humility, acknowledging that you do not have every answer, you make space for God to work in ways that exceed your understanding. Trust does not mean passivity. It does not mean that you stop taking steps or making decisions. Trust means that you align your actions with faith, that you move forward with confidence that God is guiding, protecting, and providing, even when the path is unclear. It means that instead of being consumed by worry over what might happen, you focus on obedience, preparation, and prayer, leaving the ultimate outcomes in the hands of the one who sees the beginning and the end. Every decision, every crossroads, and every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice trust. You learn to listen more, to pray more, and to act in alignment with God's guidance, rather than in reaction to fear. The moment you release the need to have every answer is the moment freedom begins to flow. Peace replaces anxiety, clarity replaces confusion, and confidence replaces doubt. You no longer live under the illusion that everything depends on you. You live in the reality that everything depends on God, who is infinitely wise, perfectly loving, and completely able. By embracing this truth, you discover that your life is not defined by your ability to control, predict, or solve every situation. Your life is defined by your willingness to trust. Trust becomes a habit, a daily choice, and a spiritual muscle that strengthens as you walk through uncertainty. You begin to see that the questions you cannot answer are not failures. They are opportunities for God to answer in ways that leave you amazed, strengthened, and transformed. Trust transforms your perspective, shifts your priorities, and releases you from the unnecessary burden of trying to know everything, proving everything, or fixing everything, allowing you to step boldly into the plans God has already prepared for you. Worry weighs you down, but faith positions you for the doors God is already preparing. Worry has a way of creeping into our hearts, filling our minds with ifs, and paralyzing thoughts that keep us awake at night. We worry about our families, our finances, our futures, and the unknown paths ahead. We replay scenarios over and over, trying to control outcomes that are beyond our reach. And in the process, we drain ourselves of peace, clarity, and strength. Worry tells us that everything depends on our effort, our planning, and our timing. But the truth is that everything depends on God, who holds the universe in His hands. Faith is the antidote to worry. Faith is what allows us to step forward even when the road is unclear, to believe in God's promises even when circumstances seem impossible, and to rest in the knowledge that He is already at work behind the scenes. When you focus on worry, you are looking at the problem, the difficulty, or the uncertainty. When you focus on faith, you are looking at God, His power, His wisdom, and His plan. Faith shifts your perspective from fear to hope, from limitation to possibility, and from confusion to clarity. Every worry you carry is like a weight in your backpack, making the journey heavier and the climb steeper. But faith removes the burden because it reminds you that you are not walking alone and that every step is guided by the one who knows the beginning and the end. God is already preparing the doors that you cannot yet see. He is orchestrating encounters, opening opportunities, and aligning circumstances that are beyond human comprehension. Your worry does not open doors. Your worry only distracts you from the doors God is preparing. Faith allows you to recognize the signs, take the steps, and walk confidently into the blessings that He has arranged in advance. It positions you to respond with readiness rather than fear, to act with courage rather than hesitation, and to receive with gratitude rather than doubt. When you stop worrying, you stop trying to force outcomes that belong in God's hands. You stop exhausting yourself with unnecessary effort and mental turmoil, and you start aligning with His timing, His wisdom, and His purpose. Faith doesn't mean that you will never face challenges or that life will be easy, but it does mean that you approach every challenge with the assurance that God has already worked it out even before you arrived at the situation. Worry makes you small, fearful, and hesitant. Faith makes you confident, courageous, and expectant. Every door God is preparing is meant for someone who is ready in spirit, heart, and mind, and worry prevents readiness by filling your thoughts with fear and doubt. Faith clears the mind, strengthens the heart, and positions your life in harmony with God's plans, allowing you to walk boldly into the future He has designed. As you choose faith over worry, you begin to see that God's preparation is perfect, His timing is flawless, and His provision is sufficient. You recognize that the obstacles that once seemed overwhelming were actually opportunities to strengthen your trust, that the moments of uncertainty were actually invitations to grow, and that the very situations that caused worry were shaping you into the person ready to receive what God has already promised. Letting go is not losing control, it's giving God the space to do what only He can do. So often, we confuse letting go with giving up. We think that releasing our grip on situations, outcomes, or people means that we are powerless, that we have failed, or that we are surrendering our responsibility. But the truth is that letting go is the doorway to freedom, the pathway to peace, and the key to seeing God move in ways we could never orchestrate on our own. Life has a way of testing our grip, making us believe that everything depends on us, that the outcome rests solely in our hands, and that if we release control, everything will fall apart. But God is not asking us to relinquish responsibility. He is asking us to relinquish worry, fear, and the illusion that we can fix everything ourselves. When we hold on too tightly, we are not trusting, we are trying to manipulate, manage, and micromanage what only God can truly handle. Letting go is an act of faith. It is a conscious decision to acknowledge that God is in control, that His timing is perfect, and that His wisdom far exceeds our understanding. It is not passive, it is active trust. When we let go, we make room for God's power to flow into our circumstances. We allow His provision to reach places that our effort alone could never touch. We give Him the freedom to orchestrate events, guide relationships, and open doors in alignment with His purpose. Holding on often leads to stress, frustration, and exhaustion because we are trying to force outcomes that are beyond our control. Letting go brings peace because it is a declaration that we believe God is bigger than our problems, wiser than our plans, and stronger than our fears. It requires humility to recognize that we do not have all the answers, and courage to trust that God does. When we release our grip, we allow Him to work behind the scenes in ways that are often unseen but always effective. The timing becomes perfect, the resources appear, and the doors open exactly as He planned. Letting go also transforms our hearts. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what God provides. It teaches patience, endurance, and reliance on His faithfulness. It reminds us that control was never meant to rest in human hands alone, and that the greatest victories often come when we surrender our strategies and embrace God's. Every situation, challenge, and relationship we are tempted to clutch tightly is an opportunity to practice faith. The more we let go, the more we experience God's peace, guidance, and provision. Releasing control does not mean we stop acting. It means we act with the awareness that the outcome is in God's hands. We continue to pray, step forward, and do what is within our power, but we release the anxiety, fear, and burden of trying to make everything happen according to our timing. Letting go is trusting God with the unseen, the unknown, and the uncontrollable. It is understanding that He is at work even when we cannot see it, and that He is orchestrating circumstances to bring about His perfect plan. When we embrace this truth, we discover that surrendering control does not weaken us. It strengthens our faith, clears our hearts, and aligns our lives with God's purpose, allowing Him to accomplish what we could never accomplish on our own. When God chooses you, He equips you Your weakness is not a disqualification, but an invitation for His strength. Too often, we look at our limitations, our flaws, and our insecurities and think that they make us unworthy or incapable of fulfilling the purpose God has for us. We compare ourselves to others, measuring our ability against their achievements, their talents, or their confidence, and we forget that God's standards are not the same as the world's standards. God does not call the equipped, He equips the called. Your weaknesses are not obstacles, they are opportunities for God's power to be revealed. They are the spaces where His grace can shine most brightly. When you feel inadequate, unprepared, or unsure, it is precisely in those moments that God steps in to provide exactly what is needed. He does not abandon His chosen ones because of their imperfections. He uses their imperfections to demonstrate His perfection. Every doubt you have about your ability is an opportunity for God to show that His strength is sufficient. Every fear about failing is an opportunity for God to prove that He is faithful. The calling on your life is not dependent on your natural ability, your experience, or your talent. It is dependent on God who equips, strengthens, and sustains you. The very things you perceive as weaknesses can become testimonies of God's power and provision. When you embrace this truth, you begin to see that failure is not the opposite of faith. It is the soil in which God's strength grows. You begin to understand that your limitations are not punishments, but invitations to rely on God's wisdom, guidance, and power. Your struggles, insecurities, and perceived shortcomings are not signs that you are unchosen. They are signs that you are in the perfect position to experience God's intervention. When God calls you, He does not leave you to figure it all out alone. He equips you with everything you need: wisdom, courage, resilience, and discernment. He places the right people, opens the right doors, and provides the right opportunities at the right time. Your responsibility is not to have it all together from the start. It is to be willing to follow, to be teachable, and to trust that God will provide what you lack. When you begin to operate from this perspective, fear loses its grip. Anxiety over inadequacy fades. Comparison with others becomes irrelevant because you recognize that God's equipping is personal, specific, and perfectly tailored to your calling. You realize that success is not measured by human standards, but by obedience, faithfulness, and reliance on God. Your weaknesses become the canvas on which God paints His strength. Your trials become the stage where His power is revealed, and your journey becomes a testimony of His faithfulness. The God who chooses you does not make mistakes, and He does not call the unprepared. He calls you exactly as you are and promises to equip you for every challenge, every responsibility, and every opportunity. Understanding that your weaknesses are not disqualifications, but invitations, allows you to step boldly into your purpose, to act courageously despite uncertainty, and to trust fully that God is at work within you, strengthening you, guiding you, and providing everything necessary to fulfill the destiny He has uniquely designed for your life.